Once again, welcome to the Community Focus Show here on Premier Radio, and I'm pleased once again to welcome back Sarah Atherton, MP, for her monthly roundup. Hello, Sarah, and thank you very much for coming along today. It's nice to see you again.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to start with an apology. I'm in my telephone box at Westminster, so I'm a little bit echoey.
We all have that cross to bear somewhere. Should we start off? I think you've got a congratulations to do to Jacob Edwards.
I have. I first met Jacob Edwards from Bradford at his Olympus Gymnastics Club in Sly in May 21, and he was showing me his routine, and I had a little bounce on the trumpet and had a little go, and he was really hopeful for being selected for Wales, and I'm really pleased to say well done to him, because he's been selected to represent Wales at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. So well done him, congratulations. I knew he was going to go a long way, and we'll be following him all the way.
Oh, it's a huge achievement for a local person to be recognised and taken that far forward. What a star! What a star! One of the things that's been coming up a bit at the moment, and I believe you've been sort of focusing on this thing, is the Shared Prosperity Fund, and you've had a walkabout in town looking at or listening to what the businesses and the locals think that would be better spending the 22 million on. How did that go?
Yes, so the Shared Prosperity Fund is the money that comes from the UK government directly to the council. Now we're out of the European Union, Brexit is done, we don't send money to Brussels anymore. And what happens beforehand, it gets now complicated areas of money used to go to Brussels, very simplistically, it used to come to Welsh Government. And then people like me, before I was an MP, used to moan that nothing was ever spent in North Wales, nothing was ever spent in Wrexham. So now Brexit has been delivered. The money isn't going to Brussels, it's going straight from the UK government. And myself and my North Wales colleagues fought long and hard to make sure that money doesn't go to Welsh Government. It comes directly to the people who know where to spend it on local need. So £22 million is coming to Wrexham over the next few years, to Wrexham Council. And it's really important that Wrexham Council spend it in the way that they've never been able to spend it for the last 20 odd years. So I've been out and about asking people what they would like this money spent on, because my job is to represent the people of Wrexham. So what they very much want it to be spent on, no surprise here, no drum roll required, is the town centre. We need to regenerate the town centre. And some of that is around jobs, some of that's around filling empty shops. But when you get right down, and when you boil it right down, it's about business rates. So I've given a whole list of suggestions that people have made. One of them was a new theatre. One of them was to make sure the Bod Humfred on our war memorial sites have plaques and are clean and tidy with benches. There's all sorts of lovely suggestions that I've taken from constituents and given to the council. And it's really now for me to make sure that the council listens. It's ultimately up to the council what they want to spend it on. I hope they don't continue to spend it on what previous money has been spent on, because I think Wrexham for the last 20 years has been ill-served by that mindset. And I think we need to look, now we're a city, we need to look forward and think about what we want. And I, living in Wrexham, and my family living in Wrexham, want what everyone else wants in Wrexham, and we want a vibrant, attractive town centre.
So if anybody listening now has still got an opinion that of things they think they should have their money spent on, what do they do? How do they get in contact with you? Is it through your office?
Yeah, sure. If they go onto my website, and I'm running a survey at the moment because I need to keep the pressure up. I need to keep all these ideas coming to me so I can collate them, and I can keep, every time I have a meeting with the council, I can badger them really to say this is what the people of Wrexham are really looking for. So the more information that you and your listeners give me, the more I can go to the council and say this is what we want.
There's also great recently where we had the press coverage and we could see for ourselves the Wales Armed Forces Day, which was hosted this year by Wrexham, and the colour, the pageantry, just the fun and games that brings to the centre of our city now. That looked and was looking its best, I think, for years.
Well, David, were you there? Did you go?
Unfortunately, I wasn't. I was elsewhere at the time. I'm not affluent to keep flying up and flying back down again.
It was absolutely fantastic. I can't remember Wrexham looking so flamboyant as it did on that day. I was so proud. It was great to see service personnel, veterans, marching bands, charities, families, stalls, Challenger tanks, Warrior tanks, uniforms all round Wrexham and flags. It was a fantastic atmosphere. I think about 300 people were involved in the parade itself. It was a really special, lovely day. And I'm really pleased that this sort of thing is coming back to Wrexham. And Wrexham is at the focal point at the moment of the military. So we had Hightown Barracks and the regeneration of that. We've got the Welsh Fusilier statue, I think, is going to go ahead, looking at the St David's Day next year to uncover that. We've had the Armed Forces Wales. We had the Falklands 40 Welsh Guards Parade, which I also attended, which was very special. And then next week, we've got the Queen's Dragoon Guards Homecoming Parade in Wrexham as well. And that's another marching band and a parade through the town centre. So, this is absolutely fabulous. For someone who's a veteran, for someone that supports our veterans, for someone that has a defence brief here in Westminster, I am so pleased that Wrexham now has this military footprint. And that's in addition to, we mustn't forget, the defence sector as a whole in North East Wales, Airbus, Raytheon, Sealand, and the jobs that provide. So I'm very pleased to be making sure that Wrexham's on that military map.
I think it's important, obviously, we know ourselves, Sarah, from being veterans, how important it is to remember our time in the services. But I think it's also nice for people who may not have been in themselves, but had family members in, and for them to just take a time out and think, my son or my father or my grandfather served as well. And it's just nice to see it. It just gives that uplift again, doesn't it? Just put some sparkle and colour back into the area, really.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Very few people, unlike our day, David, very few people now have a contact with someone in the military. And, given what they're doing for us and behind the scenes for us, protecting us, particularly what's going on in Ukraine with Russia, I think it's really nice that we learn what they do and thank them for it, and also thank the veterans and their families.
I'm moving on a little bit further now onto the Wrexham Gateway. There's lots of things that's gaining sort of notoriety at the moment. There's lots of things gaining a lot of pace at the moment, and part of that is the redevelopment of the racecourse and a petition that's been raised. And only today, you took that petition into number 10 to present it. So that's going ahead like there's no tomorrow. I think that racecourse ground is going to be something to behold, I think, in the future.
Well, the plans look quite spectacular and reflect Wrexham's mining heritage. So I did. Spencer Harris, who used to be involved with the football club and now the Spectators, he arranged, Spectators Association, he arranged for a petition. I was third to sign it. I've been involved from the start, but it's Spencer's petition to support the levelling up of sport across North Wales. So now if you're a family from North Wales and you want to stay in Wales, you don't want to go to Liverpool or Manchester, you want to watch Wales play sport, you've got to go to Cardiff and Swansea. We all know how much that costs and the time it takes to get down to South Wales. So we haven't got an international sporting stadium in North Wales, and it's about time we had. So part of the plan for the COP stand is to improve that stadium and upgrade the whole site to make it an international stadium, not just for football, but for women's sports and for rugby as well. And that it's a part of a jigsaw, because there is a bigger jigsaw, and that is the gateway bid. So the COP stand is part of Wrexham's gateway bid, which then is part of the Levelling Up Fund, which we've asked for money from the UK government to support Wrexham Council with that. So today was fantastic. So Spencer, myself, the Daily Post all went down to number 10 and handed in a petition supporting a stadium for the North of 16,109 signatures. And unfortunately, I had to see the PM's, Prime Minister's aide, as I came out. I had a copy and I said, oh, by the way, this is an opportune moment. Please, can you pass that to the PM later on today? So there's two petitions. One of them is going through the process, going to the Department of Levelling Up, and one has gone directly to the PM. But the petition is 16,000 signatures, all supporting Wrexham's Levelling Up Fund bid. That's great news.
It is great news. And as you say, it all goes towards the gateway, it all goes towards the prosperity of the area as well, because it does bring in new jobs. And we can only look for the future and think, what else can it bring in for us? Now, on a bit of a long-term topic here is the health update and things that have been going on recently at the Miler. Could you give us an overview on that one at the moment? Because obviously it's keen on everybody's radar at the moment, because we've all got reasons why we want to know more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So healthcare has devolved in Wales. So it's run by the Welsh Government in Cardiff. And, it's the biggest issue and continues to be facing people in Wrexham. There was a BBC documentary a few weeks ago now that showed the Wrexham Miler Hospital in very poor light. Not the staff. The staff are fantastic. They are working so hard, but it's just a lack of funding, a lack of accessibility, the delays in cancer care, the delays in treatment. It takes twice as long to get an operation in Wales, in Wrexham, than it does in England at the moment. And these are issues that we really have bubbled up post-COVID and need to be addressed. Now, Welsh Government have said that they're going to invest £1 billion into the NHS in Wales. The examples I saw, none of them were in Wrexham, none of them were in North Wales. So I've written to the Welsh Government, the Health Minister, asking for how that is going to be spent in Wrexham and in North Wales. That was back in April. I haven't had a reply to that yet. But I am meeting with the Miler. I do know there's some movement there. Now, I have to be honest, David, I don't want to see, shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, as that saying goes. I want to see tangible changes and outcomes for people. And I do believe that also stretches back to how you access your GP. Because if you can access your GP readily, you wouldn't need to go into A&E. So I'm mindful of all this. I'm also mindful that people can't get out of hospital the other end due to delayed transfer of care, or bed blocking as they call it, and how the interface between health and social care is inextricably linked. You can't separate the two. And there is issues there about pressures on the council and care homes. So it's a much, much bigger picture. The population is increasing, we're living longer, drugs are costing more, people are being kept along with medical advances and technologies, and it's absolutely coming to crunch time in Wrexham. I'm on the back of the Welsh Government on behalf of constituents, because some of the stories and narratives I'm hearing are absolutely tragic. And to say people are losing their lives is not exaggerating. And we need to be on to this. The Welsh Government, I think, have now woken up to realise that they have to do something. We need to work together. We really do, whether that's Welsh Government, UK Government, Betsy Cadwallader. We need to work together to get improvements. I don't care where these improvements come from. We need to do them. We've had two MSs serving Wrexham for 20 years with cabinet responsibilities. Things have gone worse and worse and worse. We came out of special measures. Nothing happened to it until COVID. It's got worse. So I don't really care who improves it. We just need to make sure that services and accessibility is better. I have regular meetings with the Betsy Cadwallader. They also do a lot of one-to-one casework for constituents who have problems, but it's coming to a head now, and we really need to see some tangible improvements.
And I think it goes without saying that healthcare is at the very forefront of everybody's day-to-day life. And one thing that we can't afford to do, we can't afford to go off and get private treatment, having paid all these years into a healthcare system. And then with the cost of living going up, with all of the financial burdens that are placed on every household across the UK, we can't now afford to go off and get, like Bupa healthcare, because we're putting ourselves at more financial risk as well of losing houses. But a lot of people I do know are thinking of that because they want to get that pain relief by having that operation or seeing a consultant. So it's a very, very difficult time for everybody, admittedly. But as you said before, this has been on for so long, we shouldn't have got to this stage by now. We should have already resolved the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthcare is tricky across the whole of the UK. It's particularly bad in Wales. So I think it's something that's going to have to be looked at long term across the whole of the UK. But at the moment now, it's quite unacceptable. The amount of people I speak to now, and they say, "Oh, I had my hip done, or I've had my knee done," and I go, "Oh, great, you got it done. Oh no, I'll pay privately." Now, some people can afford to pay privately, and this is happening more and more. Some people can afford to pay privately, some people can't. And I've got cases of people taking out payday loans for this, and they can't afford it. But they'll say to me, "Well, I can't go another 2 years or 3 years because my other hip's gone now, my other knee's gone now," which is what happens. So, it's got to be sorted out. And the problem we've got now as well is our cost of living, which is going to go up and up and up. And you could imagine, being concerned about keeping warm whilst in pain. Some people are really struggling now at the moment, and we really need to pull out the stops. And I think we've got to think innovatively about how we can meet healthcare needs in Wrexham. And if that means sending people to the private sector, which is, I don't know what Betsy Cadwallader are doing as a stopgap, then so be it. If that means sending people to private hospitals in the north of England, then so be it. But, we really need to be looking at what we can do to relieve the pressures on people.
On a plus side to that, there is a cost of living payment that's now available for over 9,000 families in Wrexham of £650. How is that rolling out? How do you see that operating?
Yes, I do regular street surgeries, and I have been quite worried now for a number of months, and I've been lobbying ministers here about what they used to call the just about managing. People in work, mum and dad, couple of kids, working 1 or 2 jobs, really now struggling to make ends meet. And the government has spent 37 billion on supporting families with cost of living. And there's various schemes. They announced a new scheme last week, which is, as you say, is going to benefit 9,600 families in Wrexham of a £650 cost of living payment. And I think it's spread over 2 instalments, starting now and one later on in the year to help them with that. In conjunction with that, every household is going to get £400 to help towards their energy bills, and £150 for people who have got some eligible disabilities, £300 for pensioners, as well as the winter fuel payments. So there's a number of schemes out there to help people, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. We've got a fuel crisis. We're concerned about getting grain out of Ukraine. That could impact going forward. We've got inflation. It's global inflation. There's global reasons why we've got this. The good thing is we've got more people in work now in Wrexham than we ever have, but it's going to be a little bit tough, and it's global. And the government, as I say, is doing all it can, but it's not there to fix everybody's individual, concerns and needs. So it's going to be tough on a lot of people. But there is support out there. And I have to say, if anyone is finding it really tough, please get in touch with the office. I will have a chat with them and just make sure they're getting everything they're eligible for.
And it's difficult as well, as a government, doesn't matter if it's Welsh or English or wherever it is, but the UK government as a whole, if you operate that like a business and you're selling products and you're getting, say, £100 million a year on profit, you can't give £150 million out every year because there's not enough left in the reserves to keep doing that. And I think this is a misconceived idea where people say, "Oh, the government should help more," because it can only go to a certain point before it says, "That's it, we're empty now and we're bankrupt."
Well, yeah, as a country, we were left empty not so long ago with a note saying all the money's gone. Since then, we've had COVID. The money has to come from somewhere. There isn't a magic money tree. And it has to stop. And if you're giving to one person, you're taking away from someone else. So it's really tricky, and the books have to balance, unless as a country we'll end up bankrupt yet again. So it is a tricky one. There is support out there, but it's good housekeeping.
Yeah, and with all of this cost of living rises and everything else, and then we get the rail strikes coming along, which they want more money as well. That can only come from the rail companies who operate them. But that going on strike for more money, I think these days it's more negotiations than striking, because it does have a major impact on not just the daily commuters going into work on the train, but others who are affected. And I believe you are going to be hopefully seeing Kellogg's, who are based in Wrexham, down at Westminster to do an awards not that long ago, really, was it?
Yes, a few years ago when I first started as an MP, I was invited to the Kellogg's Breakfast Awards, and we had a group of school children from Haverty Warehouse School in Tyre Park, and the school had won a breakfast award, and it was an absolute delight to see these children here in London. And I've had a lot to do with Kellogg's over the years, and they asked could I host the awards this year. Of course I could. It was going to be great. Hopefully we'd have some Wrexham school children up, and it would be lovely. And the whole idea is that Kellogg's supports 5,000 teachers and schools across the UK with cereals to promote food security, make sure children are going into school with a full tummy and able to learn. And they were promoting this, and it was a thank you to them, really, to say, well done, come to London, we recognise the valuable work you're doing in schools. And unfortunately that had to be cancelled because of the rail strike. So, people that missed out and lost out there were the 5,000 teachers and schools who we really wanted to say thank you and well done to. The breakfast clubs will continue, and we scheduled to host this event in the autumn. So we will say thank you to them. It just seemed a shame on that day that it all had to be cancelled at the last minute. And I could just see all those little children's faces thinking, well, we haven't got a day out to London.
And it's also, we're seeing the knock-on effects because of COVID, because of furlough. We've seen these knock-on effects right across all industries. We look at the airports, and the airports themselves and the airlines don't have enough staff that are security cleared to operate out of these places. So, families turn up, great expectations, 3 years maybe since they last went on holiday, and to be told the flight's cancelled. So I think I'm not saying we're getting used to it, but we are now living through another difficult period, which we didn't expect that to happen coming out of COVID. We thought it was all going to go back to some form of normality like it was before.
Quite often think about this and think about the airports. I mean, I would think of nothing worse at the moment than to go to an airport and see those queues. It wouldn't put me nicely. I wouldn't be relaxed thinking about going on holiday, going to an airport, and I'm certainly not going to an airport anywhere over summer whatsoever. I'll stay in the UK when I have my holiday. But I just wonder whether these companies really thought about post-COVID and what was going to happen. A lot of companies received furlough. They kept the staff on. Some companies laid the staff off. It's rather bizarre to me that they didn't, big companies, FTSE 100 companies, didn't realise that at some point everyone wanted to go on holiday. And, they have to make sure they have their staff in place, their baggage handlers, their check-in staff, and to treat them nicely and to treat them well and to make sure when they came back, they kept their continuity of skills, they felt valued, they felt supported, because we're going to need you again. It's rather bizarre to me that companies didn't think about this when they sort of laid off staff. It's very short-term logic for me. But the problem is we've got train strikes, we've got problems at airports, and it's just all coming at such a bad time. When we've come out of COVID, we're doing pretty well. Then we had Russia and Ukraine. Then we've got cost of living and global inflation. And then, of course, the way to not fix inflation is to give more money for people to spend, because that means inflation goes up and up and up, and that's not a way to control it. But that's very hard for people to say, well, my loaf of bread's costing me more, my pint of milk's costing me more, my petrol is costing me more, but it's not right that you don't give me more money. I can see how people struggle to get their head around that, but that actually is not the way to fix this. So it's going to be very tough times all around for us all.
There's also been a UK government community ownership fund, which is worth £150 million. And this gives, obviously, Wrexham community groups the chance to bid for some funds. What sort of things can you bid for, and what you have to do to be able to put your name on the list and say, I'd like to go forward for this?
Well, so far, community funds have been granted for pubs, pub ownership, historical buildings, community groups, community centres. We've got a mining museum, which I'd love to have up and running in Wrexham. They're struggling to get funds. That would be one good cause that wanted to apply for it. the Rossett hub, the toilet block in Rossett, that could possibly be another good cause because we want to change the toilet block into a little community centre in the park. That could be one. If they want to look at reinstating a theatre, that could be anything that involves the community, keeping hold of community assets, running it together, getting together as a group for the benefit of the wider community. These are all really good schemes that could be eligible. And if anyone has any thoughts or feelings out there, thinks they may have an idea or already has an established community group that needs funds, please get in touch. Because what we also do in the office as well is we do a grant finder service. So any community group that may need funds, if you get in touch with us, we get notified of all funding streams that come through from all sorts of places like Asda, Arnold Clark Cars, National Lottery, Heritage Lottery, anything like that. They all notify our office. We match them up with charities, and so far in Wrexham we've raised nearly £250,000 for local charities just by matching them up with grants. So there is a bit of money out there. So if anyone's got any community groups or any concerns or any queries or questions, please get in touch with the office and we'll point them in the right direction and support you where we can with supporting letters.
And I know recently the weather hasn't been its normal for this time of year. It was when we were in lockdown. It was a fantastic summer during lockdown, but it didn't dampen the spirits with a visit to Bellevue Park and the Offa Community Council Jubilee Party. Everybody had a good time, even though it was indoors rather than outdoors, listening to the band and things. But it seemed very, very good.
Oh, it was absolutely fabulous. Well done to Bellevue, friends of Bellevue Park and Offa Community Council. It was an absolute spanking event. We had fish and chips, lots of flags and bunting. We had the Wrexham concert band, a newly formed band, and they were playing all sorts of songs, sing-along songs, flag flying. We had veterans there, local people. It was absolutely lovely. And then right at the end, we had the Wisp Dance Club performing some dance and music for us. Do you know what? It was absolutely lovely. And it just goes to prove to me that, people wanted to get together for the Jubilee. It was fantastic. So well done, Offa Community Council and friends of Bellevue Park.
And then during your walk about town, talking to businesses, etc., where to spend this 20-odd million, you dropped into our studios whilst it was still under, I think, wet paint signs everywhere and cables hanging around. And it was nice that you actually dropped by, and we thank you for that, just to say, you didn't pick up a paintbrush, admittedly, Sarah, but we do appreciate the fact that you came and said hello to us. But hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we will be fully operational. We would like to invite you directly into the studio where we can conduct a face-to-face interview, which has been lacking over these last 2 or so years. It's been difficult to do it like this, but I think you'll enjoy it when you come in, and it's going to be an asset to us and to Eagles Meadow and to Wrexham itself.
It looks fantastic, surroundings, quite extensive. I was surprised at how large it is, and I'm looking forward to doing that. It'll get me out of my telephone box in Westminster, and I can try one of your cups of tea, which I haven't had yet.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and no doubt there's going to be more to talk about in the next 4 weeks, and you might even pop away on holiday somewhere local to Anglesey maybe, or somewhere like that, without flying somewhere. So thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Oh, thank you. Anglesey is my number one holiday destination. I love it there. So thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you, Sarah.